From the Matrix Home Solutions studios, this is Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560, The Answer.
Listen to AM 560 The Answer online at 560theanswer.com, on the AM 560 mobile app, on your Alexa-powered smart speaker, and on TuneIn, iHeart, and on Odyssey.
Coming up next, it's me, Mike Gallagher, right after Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan and Amy on AM 560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan and Amy. So today, Joe Biden will address the nation from the White House, and apparently he's going to say we're drop shipping 500 million COVID testing kits to Americans, and he's got some other ideas for how to combat, in quotation marks, Omicron over the winter. Jen Psaki, the White House spokesperson, was asked if he would be taking questions, to which he replied.
Take questions.
He takes questions multiple times a week, so depends on what you ask. Depends on what you ask.
What happened?
That's
Did
honest.
she say depends on what you ask?
Yeah, you have to pre-qualify your questions with
that's right.
her before they decide if he's going to answer them. You know, like a free and open press is supposed to operate, or the comm shop for the powers that be, perhaps more accurately. I got a question I'd like to ask. I don't think this would make the cut, though.
What is it? Want me to ask the mayor today?
I'd like you to ask the mayor of New York.
Uh-huh.
Next legislative session, beginning January 5th, the New York Senate, or you could ask Governor Hochul, too. The New York Senate could vote on a bill that would grant permissions to remove and detain cases, contacts, carriers, or anyone suspected of presenting a, quote, significant threat to public health, unquote, and remove them on an indefinite basis.
What?
The bill gives the governor of New York, his or her delegates, the right to remove and detain any individuals or groups of people through issuing a single order. The orders only have to include the individual's name or names or reasonably specific descriptions of the individuals or groups. This is all in the interests of public health, of course.
Is this because of the Applebee's incident where they all went out to eat and none of them were vaccinated and they had mass arrests?
And they've never been heard from again. No, but that's probably not true yet. That's not true yet. We've had legislative proposals like this pop up here from time to time over the last 2 years, but it is incredible that they continue to do so. It's a bit disquieting, I would say, as well. For more on the topic, we're pleased to be joined by Karol Markowitz, former New Yorker, or soon to be. She's also New York Post columnist and contributor to The Spectator and The Washington Examiner. Karol, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Is this one of the reasons, legislation like this, one of the reasons that you're fleeing New York for Florida?
I would say it's not specifically crazy legislation like this. It's an entire crazy picture where I don't see New York returning to anything resembling sanity for the foreseeable future. And so I have to get my kids out. That's really the main thing for me is I can't raise my kids in somewhere that I think is crazy. And so I have to get them to sanity.
Because it's soon. I mean, you had 12,293,000 cases yesterday in New York City. Mm-hmm. I'm sure they're talking about going to remote learning, aren't they?
Well, I have my 6-year-old with me right now. He's remote learning because he had 2 cases in his class, and so they moved remote. It's going to keep happening. Even if it's not system-wide, a lot of schools are closing, a lot of classrooms are closing. And this was an entirely predictable spike. This was not like, I know they're trying to say it's Omicron, and that's why that we're having this spike, but if you looked at the seasonality and the way that the wave of COVID cases spread across the country, it was obvious that it was coming to New York in December. I tweeted about that all through September, October, November, that we should be prepared for this spike and we should plan ahead to what we're going to do about things like school. But of course, we don't, and we pretended that getting COVID was a moral failing that couldn't possibly happen to New Yorkers, only happens to those bad Floridians and other southern states. And so here we are, completely unprepared. And that's another reason why I just feel like I have to get my family out.
And the response is we're going to double down on what we've been doing. So Governor Hochul imposes more stringent mask mandates for, or I think actually it was de Blasio, more stringent mask mandates for New York City police again, as if that is going to be efficacious in any meaningful way.
Right, absolutely. And, I think a lot of people have faced the reality that cloth masks are completely worthless, but yet we proceed in pushing them all over. And kids, have to wear them during school, and they have to wear them outdoors during school. They wear them during recess. They eat lunch on the ground. There's just so many things about our policies in New York that make no sense and have no effect on case numbers. And yet we continue to do them anyway, just, repeating the same bad policies over and over again.
So are you going to be moving to Florida? Is that a place where you think your kids could be free?
Yeah. We spent some time in Florida last year, and it was a bastion of sanity. It was so normal. And it wasn't just right. It wasn't like just conservatives that were sane. I met a lot of Democrats who were very happy that Governor DeSantis was making sure that their businesses stayed open, that their kids went to school, and now that their kids don't have to mask. All of that is just Floridians have decided that they're going to handle the coronavirus in this way, in this very sane way that New Yorkers have been unable to do.
What do you think it is? I mean, if in New York, I guess you could put that right back at us in Chicago, but it's almost like they've heard some ghost stories, and there's no perspective about life anywhere else. They're so sort of navel gazing, so into so much navel gazing that they just believe that this is the only way to protect, and anybody doing anything different is engaged in human experimentation or jumping out of a plane without a parachute or some such thing.
Right. And well, I really think that this is a case where leadership matters. And the leaders in New York have been hysterical, and they've made people afraid, and they've led them to believe that these policies that they've enacted are working when we all see that they're not. And in Florida, they have a different type of leadership. And even though, again, it's not just Republicans or conservatives in Florida who follow DeSantis. He sets the tone, and the people of the state follow that tone. And in New York, that tone is hysteria, and in Florida, it's sanity. So leadership really does matter. Parents are afraid to send their kids to school because the leaders of their states tell them it's not safe.
Yep.
It's all one big spiral.
We have governors and people in a position of power that could calm people's nerves, but they choose not to. But what we're doing today in Chicago at 1:30, our mayor is going to announce, proof of vaccination requirements to dine, to go to gyms. And you guys started that in August.
Yeah.
And why are we copying a failed system? Because your numbers are just as high as our numbers. And that's what I'm going to ask her today. But again, it's just the blind leading the blind, or they feel like they have to do something.
Exactly. Our numbers have only increased since those policies were enacted. And so every time the Mayor Bill de Blasio says that the mandates worked, I just don't understand work to do what? Because our numbers are off the charts. And so I don't see how they worked at all. And I definitely don't see why other cities would be copying our failed policies right now.
So much focus is on personnel, and that's certainly part of it. I wonder because, again, we're in a parallel situation with Lightfoot here, and you have de Blasio there. But you've got Eric Adams coming in. You've got a change in leadership coming. From what you've seen since he was elected, since he won the election, what are you expecting from him with respect to, the two big issues in terms of quality of life right now on the docket, COVID and crime?
So I have some hope for him on crime, but I don't have any hope on the COVID sanity. He said he's not changing any of the COVID policies. He said, don't look at me and hope that these COVID rules are going to be changing. On crime, he might be better. He was a police officer. He seems to take it seriously in a way that Mayor Bill de Blasio doesn't. But on COVID, I just don't see a large change.
And it's interesting, too, because we have seen a change from somebody in a position of authority, and we haven't seen very many changes like this. But Larry Hogan is one. Oh, but who, by the way, he's vaxxed and all that, and he just tested positive, too. But Larry Hogan, who is a Republican there in Maryland, but he was a COVIDian. He was a lockdowner. Sure, he was all those things. And now, all of a sudden, over the weekend, talking to Brett Baer, he's beside himself that Prince George's County is shutting down their schools and going to all remote at the beginning of the year, saying he's calling that a mistake, and we're going to tell them it's a mistake, and we're going to do what we can. So now he is recognizing that there was a real cost imposed to closing down schools, and he doesn't want to do it anymore. That's really sort of new in either direction with respect to a governor or a mayor changing direction.
I do think we're going to see more politicians move that way. And I think the fact that a lot of them are getting COVID despite being vaccinated and despite being boosted is really opening their eyes to, we can't control this thing. It's a virus. It's over. It's going to spread. Like, we can try to mitigate the worst effects of it. We can try to protect the most vulnerable populations. But it's a virus, and it's going to spread, and it's going to spread, everywhere. And I think that part of that absolutely is people who are vaccinated getting this thing right now. Excuse me. So I hope that they wake up faster. I hope that they realize that all the things that we've done have had very little effect, if any, and that we have to protect kids at this point. We've gone past the stage where we can keep closing schools and hoping for the best. I think kids are really going to be messed up over what we've done to them in the last, almost 2 years. And we need to start facing that, and the sooner the better.
She is Karol Markowitz, columnist for the New York Post, contributor to the Spectator and the Washington Examiner, and future Floridian in the not-too-distant future, it sounds like. Karol, thanks as always for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, and congratulations. And she joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
Before you see it on TV, share it on Facebook, or read about it in the paper. Hear it here first. This is Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson here, and if you're a small